Welcome back to ABC 7 Extra Sunday. I'm Mark Ross here with ABC 7 medical contributor Dr. Okachika Alozi from Sunset West Health. Tonight we're talking about keeping you and your family safe from summer illnesses. Now, Doc, I know ABC 7 has covered it a lot in the past. It's like a broken record. Hypothermia, sunstroke, heat exhaustion.
Yep.
What are the warning signs? How do you keep yourself from falling a victim?
I think the first part of it is acknowledge that we live in a city that has a lot of sun, right? It gets hot in the summertime. I think, however, in as much as people want to go enjoy those activities, you got to do it with common sense, right? If you're a parent that has a kid that has two-a-day practices, whether it's football, soccer, whatever the case is, they got to stay hydrated, right? You have to stay hydrated. The average recommendation is a cup of water every 15 to 20 minutes. Can't always happen, but you want to try to do that. Again, it's also hard to protect yourself with those long sleeves because kids want to wear the cutoffs. It's hot outside, right? Nobody's comfortable in those long sleeves, but those are the things that can help reduce the heat, especially if they're light colored. I think the other thing, and you and I have talked about this before, is those cooling stations for older persons, right? If you have a swamp cooler and the heat blows past its ability to cool your home, go to a cooling station. Try to make sure that you're hydrated. After that, it becomes a question of what are those warning signs that start to kick in. Did we talk about that?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Absolutely. So again, you've done all the right things, right? You've tried to stay warm or cool, you've hydrated, and you start to sweat. That's going to be the first key, right? That excessive, profuse sweating. You're drenched in sweat. Your body's trying to cool you off because that convection and that conduction, physics terms I know, that's what your body uses to cool you down. You will have a pulse, but it's usually pretty weak pulse, hasn't gotten too serious. You shouldn't feel dizzy or anything like that. When you get to the stage, and that's heat exhaustion, right? When you get to the stage of you stop sweating, your pulse is bounding really fast. You can feel that doom, doom, doom in your chest. You start feeling dizzy. You may have some visual disturbances. That's no longer a, hey, let me call a friend or get water. That's a 911 call, right? Because you're now having heat stroke. Temperature usually rises above 100, like you're having a fever. And that's the step before you may pass out, have a heart attack, go into organ failure. That's a critical emergency that you need to be in an emergency room.
And where does hypothermia fall into that picture?
So a hypo typically doesn't happen as much in the summer. It can happen when all your organs start to shut down, right? So a lot of times people have heat stroke, then the temperature crashes before they go into complete organ failure and unfortunately die, right? So if we're talking about hypothermia in the summer, that's a very bad sign, and it's a very dangerous sign as well.
Now, of course, you mentioned hydrating water. What about sports drinks? Or are things like Gatorade or Powerade, anything like that? Is that better than water, or is water really your key thing?
Water's the key. So I will say this, for the average person, right, that's not a quote-unquote elite athlete, just drinking water will do the trick. That's what your body needs to hydrate. Your body has all the chemicals and minerals that it needs on average. Somebody that's exercising, a little bit different, right? They're losing sodium and potassium, chlorides, magnesium. They may need a sports drink, but the average person, I know it's advertised as, hey, go out there and just do it and all the rest. It's just sugar, right? It's sugar and a couple of minerals. It's not changing your hydration status necessarily.
Now, you did talk about wearing long sleeves.
Mm-hmm. As I'm not wearing them,
of course,
yeah.
neither, yeah, I'm not, well, I am too, but anyway. Skin cancers during the summer. I mean, it's probably best to, if you talk about sunscreens and wearing long sleeves.
You know, it's interesting, especially in El Paso, when we talk about skin cancer, because we have so much sun all year round. What we see in a lot of these sunny states, the Floridas, the Texas, the Arizonas, is that a lot of the risk is associated with tanning beds, right? And so if you're in a tanning bed, if you use tanning beds in moderation, however, summertime is what we're specifically talking about. The key here is limit your sun exposure if you can, but if you can't, it has to be a minimum of SPF 30, right? You have to put on that sunscreen. It should be everywhere that's making contact with the sun, minimum of SPF 30. Remember also that the longer you're in the sun, the longer you're exposing yourself. And that SPF doesn't last all day. So you got to reapply it every 30 minutes to an hour. So I think that's really important for people to understand. If you ever at any point in time say, oh wow, that's weird, I have this little thing on my arm or my chest or wherever, I think it's important to watch it at first. If it changes in a 3 to 6 month period, you got to go see a physician, see a dermatologist, make sure you don't have melanoma.
And they're talking about, I saw this on Good Morning America the other morning, about the specific kinds of sunscreens to use. Definitely SPF 30 or above, but there's types that have aluminum in them?
Yeah, those are the chemicals. So
the
it's
chemical,
literally, and I've used this analogy before, it's like rubbing aluminum foil on your body because it actually reflects the sunlight, the UV rays, right, which are what causes the damage to your skin. There's the chemical and there's the water-based, right? And so both of them work. They're different in terms of their consistency. They're different in terms of how long they last. The chemical-based usually are a little bit better and they last a little bit longer. I think the important thing for people to understand is that just because you're wearing sunscreen doesn't mean you can't get sunburn.
All right. Summer sports injuries. I saw a lot of people the other day playing pickleball. I mean, that's a problem.
Yeah. So I think my sort of take on it is if you're out there playing sports, kudos to you, right? You want to be active, whether it's winter or summer. However, also got to remember that a lot of times you can get injured, right? People overexert themselves. There's peer pressure to jump in the pool and dive, water injuries, right? You got to be careful when you're diving into shallow pools. You're out there playing tennis or pickleball. Remember, you're not an Olympic athlete, right? Especially when you hit a certain age. You got to do it in moderation. If you're not hydrating, you start to feel a little bit dizzy or faint, sit down, right? Have some water. And then again, the kids that are out there, we see a lot of injuries around ankle injuries, knee injuries, the sports doctors and the family physicians out there. Again, you got to be careful. I think there's no way to necessarily protect yourself from summer sports injuries. I think the key is be wary, have fun, but do it in moderation. Don't go crazy. Now, I mean, my son's going to listen to this at some point, and he's outside every day, and good for him, right? I can't do that.
Yeah.
But again, being a youth, that's the fountain of youth, and so kids are a little bit different. I think one of the things for parents to remember is either now or right before they go back to school, make sure they get that sports physical, right? So they get checked up.
And the same exertion rules apply if you're out there playing pickleball or tennis or whatever.
Absolutely. If you're sweating, that's good. Your body should be sweating. You're exerting itself. If it starts to get a little bit much, a little bit different than normal, drink some water, sit down. If you ever start to feel dizzy while exercising or playing a sport in the sun, that's a problem.
ABC 7 medical contributor Dr. Okachika Alozie, always a pleasure to visit with you. Thank you for all this great information.
Thanks for having me back.
And that's ABC 7 Extra for this Sunday night. I'm Mark Ross. Stay safe, stay strong. I'll see you next Sunday.
Thank you for watching. ABC 7 News is now available on any of these streaming services, as well as the KVIA News and KVIA Weather and Traffic apps.